In the southern Gaza city of Khan Younis, grief hangs heavy in the air outside Nasser Hospital. Dozens of Palestinians gather silently, surrounded by white body bags lined across the hospital courtyard, the remains of people who once lived here, now returned by Israel under the latest ceasefire agreement. Around 50 of these bodies are unidentified, their names lost in the rubble and chaos of war. The mourners move slowly, unsure of where to begin. Some weep quietly, others stand motionless, staring at the shrouded forms laid before them. Among the crowd are mothers, fathers, brothers and neighbours, each hoping for a trace of recognition, a piece of clothing, a familiar face. A Gazan mother, Hassan Hamad, stands at the edge of the crowd. Her voice trembles as she says, "Every day I come here, maybe I'll recognise him." Unfortunately, there were no distinguishing marks. Her son disappeared weeks ago. Since then, she's been searching every hospital, every morgue, every list. But now, as she looks at the line of bodies, she admits the truth. She may never know which one was his. Nearby, members of the Civil Defence and the Health Ministry work together to implement what they call a humane burial protocol. The process is slow and deliberate, each body washed, wrapped, prayed over and carried to its final resting place. The Civil Defence spokesperson, Mahmoud Basal, explains in a trembling voice that 165 bodies arrived at Nasser Hospital in a deplorable state, 195 in total handed over so far as part of the ceasefire exchange. Most of them have not been identified, nor have their families been able to claim them. He pauses for a moment, his face weary from months of searching through the wreckage. "We try to give them dignity," he adds, "even when we cannot give them back their names." The scene outside Nasser Hospital reflects the painful paradox of Gaza's ceasefire, the return of the dead instead of the living. In exchange for hostages and prisoners, Israel has handed over dozens of bodies, most too disfigured to be recognised. For many Palestinians, this grim handover has become a symbol of what they call the human cost of the conflict, a reminder that beneath every truce, the losses continue to pile up. Ismail al-Thawabta, director of the Hamas government press office, stands before the cameras. With a voice firm yet sorrowful, he declares, "Today we are burying 54 bodies of our Palestinian people handed over by the Israeli occupation. They are martyrs from the first and second batches behind him. Men in white gloves carry body bags toward waiting ambulances." Al-Thawabta continues, his tone hardening. "Most of the bodies were blindfolded and handcuffed. They were executed at close range. We lost a large number of our martyrs." His words echo across the courtyard, met by murmurs of grief and disbelief. Around him, the crowd listens in silence, some with tears streaming down their faces, others whispering prayers beneath their breath. One by one, the bodies are lifted into ambulances. The engines start, the doors close, and the vehicles roll slowly toward the cemetery. Each departure feels like the end of a story that was never fully told. No one knows exactly who these people were, where they lived, how they died, or who still waits for them to return home. Among the mourners, young men lift their hands to the sky, reciting the final prayers. The air is thick with the sound of grief, quiet sobs, whispered verses, the hum of engines. A faint wind sweeps across the courtyard, lifting the edge of a shroud before settling again. Even the sky seems heavy with sorrow. In Gaza, funerals have become a daily ritual, but this one feels different, colder, more uncertain. These are not the funerals of known martyrs, whose families can claim them, whose names can be engraved on headstones. These are the funerals of the nameless, those whose final moments remain a mystery. Their families, like Hassan, cling to fading hope, searching for meaning in the unrecognisable. Around the hospital, the crowd swells. Men stand shoulder to shoulder, performing the janazah, the Islamic funeral prayer. Their voices rise together, soft yet resolute, as the imam leads them through verses for the dead. Cameras capture the moment, hundreds of arms raised in prayer, hundreds of hearts united in mourning. The camera pans across the scene, wide shots of the hospital courtyard filled with people, medium shots of faces wet with tears, and tight shots of trembling hands pressed to the plastic covers of body bags. The imagery tells a story no statistics can capture. As the prayers end, volunteers move forward to lift the bodies. The procession begins, ambulances lined up, engines humming, lights flashing in the midday sun. The vehicles drive away one after another, escorted by men on foot and families trailing behind. The sirens are silent. Only the sound of the engines breaks the air. Inside one ambulance, a young man sits beside a body bag, his hands clasped tightly. He stares at the shroud as if trying to memorize the shape beneath it. Perhaps it is his brother, his friend, or maybe a stranger. It no longer matters. In Gaza, every loss feels personal. At the burial site, the scene is raw and unfiltered. The bodies are laid in long trenches marked with simple stones. There are no names, only numbers. Each number represents a story untold, a family left in anguish. Workers move carefully, laying one body after another, covering them with sand as prayers continue in the distance. Back at the hospital, more families arrive, women clutching photographs, men carrying documents, each hoping for a miracle. The lists at the morgue are long and incomplete. Most of the recovered bodies are beyond recognition. The officials say DNA testing is impossible under current conditions. There's no equipment, no lab access, and little coordination. For Gaza's families, that means waiting without answers. Some will keep searching for weeks, others may never know. The war has erased not only lives, but also the identities that once tied them to this land. Yet amid the grief, there is resilience. The people of Khan Younis continue to gather, to mourn together, to bear witness. Their presence alone is an act of defiance, a statement that even in death, their community will not be erased. The ceasefire agreement that facilitated this handover was meant to offer relief, a pause in fighting, a chance to breathe. But here, it brings only more reminders of what has been lost. The exchange of remains has stirred anger and sorrow across Gaza. Many see it as a cruel gesture, closure without justice. Officials say this is just the first phase of body returns, with more expected in the coming days. Each batch adds to the growing tally of the unidentified. Humanitarian organizations on the ground warn of the psychological toll, the trauma of not knowing, the agony of searching for faces that no longer exist. In the crowd, a little girl holds her mother's hand tightly. She doesn't understand the full meaning of the day, but senses its weight. Around her, adults whisper prayers for mercy and strength. The child looks at the ambulances leaving, her eyes following them until they disappear down the road. For her, the word ceasefire means something very different. Not peace, but the quiet aftermath of devastation. Throughout Gaza, similar scenes unfold. Families gathering in makeshift cemeteries, volunteers digging graves, and hospitals overwhelmed by the return of bodies. Each one represents the unfinished business of war. The Ministry of Health in Gaza calls for international organizations to help identify the dead and return them to their families. They describe the situation as a humanitarian emergency within a humanitarian emergency. For many Gazans, the question now is not when the fighting will resume, but how they will heal from what has already happened. The physical destruction can be rebuilt. The psychological wounds, the loss of identity, the unclaimed dead, will take generations to mend. At sunset, the funeral processions slow. The prayers fade into the sound of evening calls from nearby mosques. Families linger by the fresh graves, some pressing their hands into the sand, others whispering their loved ones' names into the wind. As the last ambulance leaves the hospital gates, the courtyard empties. Only the echo of footsteps remains. The white shrouds are gone, but their image will linger in the minds of those who witnessed this day, a haunting reminder of a conflict that continues to take lives, even after the guns have quieted. In Khan Younis, mourning has become a routine, but this one feels like an open wound. 54 unidentified bodies returned without names, without closure. For the families who come every day hoping to recognize a face, the wait goes on. As night falls, the city is quiet again. But beneath the silence lies a collective grief that no ceasefire can end.